Hey guys, I'm Trevor.
I'm Vincent.
And we are the Anthony and Todd Show. Today we're going to be taking a look at Denzel Curry's latest record, TA13OO. TABOO. Denzel Curry, American rapper, featured on the XXL 2016 freshman list. He had 2 albums before this, as well as multiple EPs. In 2017, he released an EP called 13, a lot of demos, and ended up being a sampler for his latest record, TABOO. And then he had 3 singles from TABOO, SUMO, PERCS, and CLOUT, COBAIN, all of which are and they all made it onto the album. TABOO is meant to be like a 3-part album released in 3 days, over the course of 3 days, and the 3 singles are all meant to represent the album's parts: light, gray, and dark.
And as a whole, I think this is a very excellent record, but I think a lot of the concepts or a lot of the gimmicks it's trying to go for just don't make any sense. Like the 3-act thing, I think it's cool to release an album in 3 parts, but I don't think when the album's combined into one unit that it needs to be in 3 parts, or it should be listened to in 3 parts, because I think as a whole there's no reasoning behind it, because it sounds like all one unit.
Yeah.
As one thing, and if you released it as 3 different like little EPs and then eventually combined it into one unit, it would be fine. But this like 3-act structure just doesn't make any sense, and the light, gray, dark spectrum has no implication in the music whatsoever. I think the closest to having any like actual implications probably the light side, because it is a little bit more
I'd definitely say that,
brighter production wise, but the rest of it's really dark or darker. Like Superman, Super Saiyan, and CLOUT, COBAIN are all on the gray side, but they feel like dark tracks. Like CLOUT, COBAIN is a huge dark track, but it's not on the dark side.
Yeah.
That's more reserved for PERCS. So like you get ideas of what he's trying to do, but they just don't make any sense, or they don't pan out well. And I think that's one of the biggest things that it has against it, is that I think all the tracks on here are good, but I feel like a lot of the tracks on this album are so close to being great, and that's kind of like the problem it has. Is like Curry hasn't figured out everything he wants to go for on this. He has vague ideas, but he hasn't really executed everything all the way. He has good production throughout the entire album. He has features that really work with him. All the feature performances on this I find really good.
Yeah.
And he knows who to collaborate with, and he can almost project himself really nicely. All of his flows and sometimes his themes and his lyricism really impress me, but I think a lot of times there's just some moments where he just like falls flat. I think the second act is the biggest indicator of this. Like the first 3 tracks of the second act I find to just be almost like insignificant compared to the rest of the album, because I think you got Superman's Super Saiyan, The Switch, and those are tracks that just like have like little to no implications on everything else. Like they feel unneeded. Like I like that they're there because he has good performances, productions on them blends really nicely. They're not as good as other tracks. They're not bad, they are good tracks, but they're not as good as other tracks. Like those tracks don't compare to SUMO and Vengeance and PERCS. Like there's no, and even like Blackest Balloon, there's like no real reason for them to be there besides extending the album's life to 13, so it's 13 tracks. It's tab13boo. Also, the titling of this album I find to be really fucking annoying.
I just kind of ignored it for the majority of the time. Everything's written out in all caps first, and then with the vertical line, and then after that it has like the numbering.
It turns,
doesn't like make any sense.
Sometimes it turns B's into 13, which makes sense because of the title, TA13 TABOO. But it doesn't, like sometimes it turns S's into Z's, which I don't really understand.
My favorite
it turns
number.
like ones into I's into ones sometimes, but not all the time.
Also, the O's aren't zeros. I don't understand that.
Like it's just like, I don't understand the point of the titling, and I just find it to be really annoying. And I think it's the fact that it's like expanded too. Sometimes you just can't really see everything in the title, like whose the features are sometimes, because the titles are just so long, and that just bugs me. If it was just like the numeric title, the edited title, and the features weren't edited, I think that would be fine. But some of these titles are just so long. Like the title for Vengeance, which the word alone is not edited, but the JPEG feature is just so annoying to me. Like I just don't understand why it is there. And it's just like you can't read the entire thing because that's to scroll through if you're like looking at it through Spotify. But there's no really purpose for it to be there.
Yeah.
And it just shows you that Curry really has no reason to do some stuff sometimes, and he hasn't really almost figured everything out. He's a solid artist, but he doesn't have a grasp on everything. But going into more of songs of this album, I think this album is also really incredible, with a lot of these tracks being super hard-hitting, super impressive. Like tracks like Perks, Curry takes everything that is great about him, his like hard-hittingness, his ability to be super fast and super clever. Like Perks is such like a great moment about that. Kind of just like he critiques everything in the rap scene, from like the glorification of like drugs and hip hop to mumble rappers and like SoundCloud rappers, and also like the popularity of hip hop and almost the glorification of hip hop and violence and white people. I find that to be incredible. Moments like Sumo, which are just like hard-hitting bangers, is all pretty much braggadocio, but he makes it so worth it with all of his like his dumb references to shows like Chowder with the line "Chop, eat a rapper like Chowder, rada 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 rada, never give a fuck about a dollar." I just find that to be it's so stupid. At the same time, it's so clever that he's able to just throw an entire line of radas in there, right, making reference to Schnitzel, and throwing in another line that actually fits that rhyme. I think is incredible. Also, Out of My League, You Pee Wee, Pocket Too Big, Rikishi. The fact that he mentions that his pockets are too big, that he's a sumo, I think is just incredibly like humorous, incredibly fun, but his amount of aggressiveness that he's able to like dominate over the track with, I think is incredible. And it makes like moments like Sumo, where he's, even when he's like going like full braggadocio, I think really worth it. Moments like Black Balloons, where he uses the metaphor of like a balloon to like talk about his depression and how it's almost like kind of lingering over you, and I think that's just like a really cool metaphor. Goldlink's on the track, and like my experience with Goldlink, I've always been kind of like underwhelmed with him and why he's kind of like popular, but on this he actually like has a really good flow going for him, and he demonstrates a lot of character, and he meshes with Curry. He doesn't feel like, when I saw he was going to be on this album, I almost thought Curry was going to almost like overpower him, or he was going to be in the back while Curry kind of took center stage. But he holds his own on the track, which I really enjoy. And then the vocals from 12 Lin, I think that's how you say his name, or is like
12 in disguise. Trying
really,
to cross over into Flatbush.
Really meshed well with Curry's. And I think just another thing about this record is that Curry's vocal performances, anytime he does sing, are really good. He's not the best singer, but he makes up with a lot of passion and a lot of harmonies that kind of remind me a lot of like what Kendrick's doing with his vocals. I think they have a lot of the same vocal nuances that they both use in order to make their not so down pat vocal skills work. One of the lead singles to this, CLOUT, COBAIN, is so incredible, and I think it's one of the best tracks of the year, hands down, because it's able to just make fame into this larger issue, and making reference to suicidal doors, Sue Weather seats, like a bloody stain, making references to Kurt Cobain's suicide. Yeah. I think, and the fact that it's called CLOUT COBAIN, I think it's just one huge ball where Curry's kind of making references to previous things, but also making it almost like a braggadocio like moment. And the fact that the track hypes up disturbing nature and disturbing paranoia of fame, and how fame may seem like a good thing, but in reality, it's just always a thing where it leads to you kind of questioning everyone around you, whether they like you for you, or whether they like you for your money or for your talent. Just going into so many aspects of like having to prove yourself, comparing to other artists, and like suffering for your art, and like the paranoia is incredible. And I think Curry like manages to tie this like really tight bow over this huge subject and make it really catchy, make it still real enjoyable, make his flow still work. He doesn't suffer flow for lyrical content, which I think is good, or narrative storytelling. He still is able to be just as hard hitting, just as fast, just as quick witted, and just as fun, but talk about subject and in depth, which I think is incredible. Vengeance with JPEG Mafia, and I think his name is Zilla Kami. Not too familiar with his work, but I think he's really impressive with this track as well. But JPEG Mafia and Denzel, on paper, this is a fucking no-brainer. Like, if you look at artists in the hip-hop scene, JPEG Mafia and Denzel Curry are obviously two of the most fiery artists that have two of the most loudest personas out right now and continue to impress people with their work. And the collaboration between these two is like really impressive. Denzel Curry starts off the track being fiery as all hell, not holding anything back, just going as fast, just as furious as all hell, as all get out. And then JPEG comes in, and he's not trying to outspeed Curry or out-rap Curry. He's kind of doing the flow similar to on his Millennium freestyle a bit. Kind of this weird mix of like boy band and trap and like emo, which I think blends out into this unique persona that is different enough from Denzel's that it doesn't seem like the same thing. And then Zilla comes on the end. You can tell from like his voice and kind of the forced rapsiness that he's trying to go really hard with these lines, and almost like the passion that he's throwing into his project, just kind of like trying to lower his voice super deep so you get these like really grimy, really filthy lines. But I think it's incredible. Like, everyone on this track just kills it. I think it's really impressive. Like, there's so many like fun moments on this. I love JPEG's like reference to Kanye's "We Don't Care" with a "Made It Past 25" line. I love
"Upset bitch, let me die."
I love Denzel's line with "I go hard like Timmy, want to talk about it like Jimmy Neutron." Like,
so funny.
Just like everyone kills it on this track, and it is one of the most furious, like fast paced hip hop tracks this year. And but like there's so many moments where I think Curry just kills it. But again, going back to the second half, which is I think a lot of my major issues come in, is tracks Super Saiyan, Superman, Switch It Up, and Mad I Got, I think are just they're good, but I think they just didn't need to exist. And I think this album, it didn't need to be any shorter, but I think if they were removed, I think the theme wouldn't be as good, but I think it would be more condensed and more fun. I enjoy them, but when you look at the subject matter presented on this album, like nothing really interrelates. There's no like overarching theme, but there's overarching lyrical moments with each track, or there's something that makes each track special. And those three moments, they're good. They each have like moments that make them special and make them enjoyable, but I just don't think they are needed. And also, I forgot to mention earlier, Sirens with JID. JID and Denzel's relationship on that track, or their chemistry on the track, I find to be really good, and how almost this is a track for Denzel to kind of like release himself and talk about current problems in the United States and his frustration with it, and almost to like how to emasculate so much fear and paranoia and anger into one verse, I think is incredible. And then JID talking about like something completely different, just to like give a fresh spin on things on the second half, talking about like a failing relationship, is such like a good collaboration. And like I think JID really proved more of his worth here on this track, and I'm excited to hear more tracks by him. There's so many good moments, and there's so many like interesting ideas being presented on here, and so many fast-paced verses, so many aggressive verses, so many hard-hitting verses, and so much great production from so many producers. Mostly FNZ, Mickey DeGrand do a majority of the production. Also, Charlie Heat, most notably, did the production for Sumo, one of the better tracks on here. And I think everyone works well. Curry finds himself great producers who have great backing to his hard-hitting bars. And that's all you need to know. I could do with some more lyrical content, some more heavy-handed subject matter, or even some more moments that are completely different from everything else and spice everything up. Because I think all these tracks are good, but they just need to be, some moments just need to be a little bit different from each other to make them matter more.
We were talking about it earlier about like different collaborations with different artists. I think Denzel's greatest strength is that he knows exactly who to collaborate with, because he knows who's going to bring out the best strengths in him. Even some of these features that I thought, on paper I saw weren't gonna work out, like Gold Link or Zillakami, just because I don't know any of Zillakami's like past work, and I've never really cared for Gold Link. But I think that everybody here works out really well. JID brings out the best in Curry. Also, this is the first thing I've heard from JID since I started seeing a lot of stuff on Twitter or wherever, just people talking about how like JID is the new Kendrick. And at first I was like, no, that's really stupid. But now I think maybe those have like a little bit of weight to them, because I think that his flow and his subject matter and just like his storytelling ability puts him in a rank above a lot of like the rappers he was grouped with in his freshman class. He's not defined by his class. I appreciate that a lot. Also, it's good to see JPEG featuring on something since Veteran.
Especially this mainstream.
Yeah, I'm just like to see him getting more coverage. He's almost like, I consider Denzel Curry and JPEG to be kind of in the same ranks as Flatbush, like in the mainstream, but not really. And I like them. I like them where they are.
Yeah.
Because I'm not listening to everybody all over the place saying like, "Oh yeah, you heard that new JPEG record?" Like that's like special for me, or Denzel is like special to me because not a lot of people like listen to him. But I think that as they continue to like feature on each other's projects, they just continue to like prove their worth and why they should be like more popular. And so like whenever I want to introduce somebody to these artists, I feel like they have more weight in that sense. I just think that like Denzel's latest effort here is outstanding. I can't believe that he is still not like considered in a lot of hip hop conversations after he puts out a project of like this girth. I just think that he has like a lot of interesting things to say, as well as like just a lot of braggadocious moments, like trap inspired moments that are going to resonate well with like this trap culture that's going around. The only thing that I didn't care for in this album, the only thing that like really gets lost with me is that 3-part thing that we talked about. Like, I don't understand why there was a point to release this over 3 days. Cool concept and all, the 3-part thing, cool concept, but like it just doesn't make any sense with the tracks. The tracks have to back up that concept in order to have that be a valid concept. But I, like probably everybody else that listened to this album, listened to the whole thing just straight through and like didn't even know where it separated. Like if you told me that like SUMO was supposed to be the defining moment for the light genre, I was like, this doesn't make any sense, you know? Something like the Avalanches I would consider to be like the light genre, you know, all like bathed in goodness and light and fun. Denzel Curry is not bathed in fun. Also, the whole album just had this very, like, Disturbia feel concept behind it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
This whole, like, alternate world where everything is messed up or, like, different. Reminds me a lot of, like, the mid-2000s where we're seeing, like, Rihanna or Lady Gaga or, like, the Goosebumps Horrorland books. Like, that's what this reminds me of. It's, like, this weird period where people are, like, obsessed with these alternate, like, grimy worlds, you know what I'm talking about? Like freak shows and things, like this kind of freak show revival. And now we're in 2018 doing the same thing. Like that was just really bizarre to me.
But like this time it's more about, I think especially with CLOUT COBAIN, where a lot of the imagery of the album comes from, is it's about like almost like putting people on a center stage, having them be clowns, having them be novelties.
Yeah, this has like a very circusy vibe, but I don't think it meant to. Or I don't think that it was explicitly supposed to.
Yeah.
But that's what it reminds me of. Like that what was the music video where like people, it was like people could like go through the wall or something. You went through the wall and then you were at this like really like
Harry Potter.
No, not Harry Potter. The music video. Oh yeah, the Harry Potter music video. No, it was like people like went through a wall or something and then they were in like Disturbia. I assume it was the Disturbia music video.
Okay.
That's what
this is one of the moments.
That's what this album reminds me of. It's like Denzel Curry's like, "Hey, come inside," and everybody like walks inside, and he's Louis Armstrong for some reason, and then everybody goes in there, and it's like caution tape and like green slime and strobe lights. It's like, you know what I'm talking about?
I
Okay,
guess.
that's what that reminds me of. This whole album reminds me of that.
So he takes them to Nickelodeon Studios.
Yes, he takes them on the set of All That. And
I was
then
hoping it was Double
Double
Dare.
Dare. And then here we are. Denzel Curry hosts Double Dare. He also voices the head on Legends of the Hidden Temple.
But in summary, Denzel Curry drops one of the hardest hitting albums of this year that solidifies his spot, at least as one of the best rappers currently living.
Yeah, I honestly can't see like why. Again, can't see why he's just not included in a lot of hip hop conversations.
And it's not like, I think we referenced JPEG earlier. I think a lot of the reasons why he isn't included in a lot of those conversations is because he's so weird. Like, you listen to Real, that is just insane, and like Rainbow Six, like those are like two tracks that are just completely out there. But
This
like
is,
Denzel Curry,
that's part of weird that like I want to explore, because there's like hip hop, and then there's Death Grips, and these guys are in the middle. I like that.
Curry's like more hip hop. Curry's more hip hop. JPEG's more like Death Grips. But like, I think Curry is more normal than JPEG, and I think he could solidify his spot in the mainstream because I think he's hard hitting, just as hard hitting as JPEG.
Some of these would
not
play
as
really
strange.
well to like a radio listener.
Sumo
For sure, like 100%.
CLOUT, COBAIN.
Sumo. Perks would play.
Yeah.
Basically, any of his singles here would play really well to like radio play, but I haven't heard anything.
And even like the last track, Black Metal Terrorist, which is basically with his Zell persona, which is essentially just like
Zeltron 6000.
it's like a version 2 of Ultimate in a sense. Not as good, not as hard hitting, not as memey, but equally
It's still good.
Equally as enjoyable though.
It's a good way to wrap up the album as well. Also because there's no real like ending. There's no like defining ending. It just kind of like screeches off, you know? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like the only time that I think this whole like dark aesthetic made any sense to me. Cause like when I first listened to it, I forgot it was in 3 parts, and then towards the end, Vengeance and Black Metal Terrorist really kind of made that dark perspective like make sense. But then I think it was just kind of too little, too late.
I enjoy the the line finish him Zell, give him hell, like just to close off the album using his hard hitting persona to like go out there and just kind of like murder it one last time, almost like an encore of sorts. Because I think that's probably the best way. That's kind of how I view it. Like Vengeance is like the most hype moment where he gets JPEG on stage and like everyone goes fucking crazy. And
this is like his final song, and then he leaves, and everybody's like wanting him to come back, and then he comes back out. Yeah.
But I think we talked too much about this album. We just keep on rambling about what we like about it. But Denzel Curry, hardest hitting record of the year. Can't say that enough. I really enjoy this project.
It's in the ranks of the best for the year so far. Yeah. It's going in my good albums pocket.
Good albums pocket. Keep your good. I don't have a pocket.
Keep your pockets
Keep
close.
your albums
in your shirt.
That's not a pocket. That is buttons. But until next time, guys, I've been Vincent.
I'm Trevor.
See you, boys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.